Yeah, so welcome back, everybody. Been a while since I've had an upload. Again, been busy at work. We had a really severe cold snap about a week and a half ago, and we've had like a 70-degree temperature change to the good side. Couldn't get much colder than it was, right? And honestly, that's made it really busy at work. I think people that were pretty much hunkered down through the severe cold are out and about again, and that means I've been busy and haven't really been in the home shop here much the last few days, like working in an hour or so in the evenings. And when you have about 12 hours worth of prep work to do to get a video rolling, and you get about an hour a day to do it, you know, things move pretty slow. So I'll catch you up on what's been happening. So, all right, get back in the frame of mind here. The bushings finally showed up. They came in packs of 3, which is just fine. I only needed 1, but this allows me to have a couple on hand for future projects, which isn't a bad thing. These were the 1 3/8 on the outside, 7/8 on the inside, and of course they're too small for our .975 shaft where it cleaned up, so I bored one out to fit that, and then we pressed it right into the coupling, and fits very well. Really happy with that. Made sure the size and the fit was appropriate. All is good there. As long as I was on that, I did a lot of repair to the leading edges of the dogs. There was quite a bit of wear going on there. They were actually starting to kind of taper out, not only on the coupling shaft, but on the sliding collar as well. I'll fit these together and show you what I'm talking about. So it might be a little bit harder to see on camera, but hopefully you can see. You look at how that joint fits right there, and this is not a straight 90. I put a little bit of a, well, I'd call it a positive rake. Probably not the right application for that term, but if it makes any sense, I formed them so that the peaks are higher than the valleys. So, you know, like I said, we're not a 90. We kind of go out and then zag back a little bit and then go on the way. That makes it so that when this is under load, they're wanting to ramp into one another. So when you get a lot of torque on this, they're going to want to tighten in because they're going to want to ramp together, instead of the way they were worn before, where they had kind of some negative bias and it made them want to ramp apart. So hopefully that's going to take some tension off that fork and keep this thing together a lot better. So it's almost like a dovetail joint, if you will. So that's kind of the profile we put on the leading edges of both of those. Okay, yeah, final talking point. The old spacer washer that we had on the back of the transmission counter shaft that was pushing on the coupling shaft. So, you know, we changed a lot of those thrust surfaces. We took high spots off of that in there, and we took high spots off of the input shaft. And yes, those two surfaces are meant to thrust against one another. That is how the thing is designed. But there was some talk about why not just capturing a thrust washer beneath the bushing down in here and completely renewing that surface. The problem is, if I captured a washer beneath that bushing, you can see we have the oil feed hole right here that just kind of lets oil run into that. That would block that off, and that wouldn't be any good for anything. So we pretty much have to put the spacer washer back on the back end of the coupling shaft. And because we took material off of that pocket down in there and off the top of the input shaft, we have to go back to some sort of a spacer washer. Now, I didn't really like how this one was. I think it's just a regular washer. And because we took more material out, we're going to need something thicker. So I made this. You can see it's a lot more substantial than that washer. And we have a pretty good step on the top of it there, because the counter shaft in this transmission has, let's get something to point with here, shall we? Always prepared. Has a pretty good recess in the center, right in there. Maybe you can see it, maybe not. But the step that's on the face of this washer will center itself right in the recess on the back of that counter shaft. Oh yeah, I held finals in too. And pretty much keep that located and make everything happy in here. Once again, we'll get the inflow to the coupling shaft under control. And yeah, I think we're pretty much ready for the reassembly process of that PTO now. That was a lot of really tedious work that happened off camera. A lot of weld, file, and repeat, and measure, bolt everything up, you know, turn washers, make spacers, stuff that was just really hard to make any kind of video out of. So we did get it done little by little, bit by bit, and I'm kind of over it. I'm ready to get that PTO off my bench. So let's get going. Okay, so make some room to work. First piece to go back in is going to be the fork and the shaft that it slides on. So get set up to do some assembly here. I'm just going to pre-coat everything with a little bit of grease, especially on those detent pockets in there. Detent also covered in grease, and its spring, and we'll seal it in with the plug. Okay, like that. Okay, now I can put the repaired fork on the sliding shaft. So line the holes up. We'll probably have to tap it on a ways. Now to secure it with the new pin that I made, I'm just moving the V-block here to give it some support down underneath. Just cleaning that up a bit. I took this outside, used some heat to assist in peening over both ends of that pin so our fork is permanent. Now, at this point, I think I'm going to put the input seal in. You don't have to right now, but it's still rather convenient because you can do this, fully compress that detent, and just rotate that right out of the way. That's all wide open right there. So there's the seal. So as we talked about last time, input-output seals are both the same. Cat number was a 2B1869. I found them in a SKF 13797. They're the specs if you're interested. Okay, now we can put the lever shaft and the arm in. So this lever shaft has a seal that goes up here, but the shaft has to go into the housing first because the seal goes on top of this step right here. So just need to make sure we do that in the right order. Have the key in place down at the bottom there for the arm. Okay, so I've secured the arm to the base of the shaft. New fold over lock. Just finished folding the last tab on that, so we can turn this around. Yeah, we need to plug that hole down there now, so put a little bit of sealer on that core plug just to make sure it doesn't seep. Alright, we're finished down at the bottom of the shaft, so we can concentrate on everything that goes up here. First thing is going to be that seal. So yeah, the cat number was a 1B9919. I crossed it to the SKF 6229. Once again, there's all the specs. Kind of a heavy duty little seal for the size of it, but I've got the lip well greased as well as the top of that shaft because we have to get that seal lip past that square corner, that square shoulder right up at the top. So we'll just proceed cautiously. Looks good. We put the lever on the top now. I've got the key in place. The key wanted to kick out on the bottom just a little bit. Get that back where it needs to be. Now the new fold-over lock we made, and secure it with the nut. Okay, just finished folding the lock, so let's just check out how it's all working here. Okay, seems like it's all right. Yep, liking that. So the engagement portion of this is done. All right, now we can set the gear train. So we'll start with engaging the collar on the fork on the back side. We need to get that in place first. And I'll just carefully thread the input shaft through the seal. Start it into those collar splines. There we are. Now, I think I need to put the output shaft in first before we throw that idler gear in. I think that idler gear has to be first one out, last one in. Okay, I need to get in mesh with both gears. There we are. There, everything's home. All right, we can put the cover on. So we've got some goop in place around the perimeter of the gasket surface on the housing and corresponding goop on the other side, right? So I like to hang the gasket on this piece because we have these two dowels that are going to hold it in place. Front cover now. Just carefully start that output shaft through the seal. I put that seal in there off camera. It's the same as the input seal, so we didn't miss anything there. Okay, that lined in well. Okay, everything's tight, so I'll just give it a test spin. I think that's pretty good. And it's getting heavy. Yep, I like it. Okay, so that's as far as we can go with it on the bench. Let's get this put onto the transmission, huh? All right, one bit of housekeeping to do first. We need to get these drawbar brackets put on, because once the PTO is in place, you're not going to have much for access to any of the nuts or washers. So we'll just get this knocked out of the way while it's all accessible. So we've got the drawbar brackets tight. We can put the coupling shaft in now. So we have the spacer washer that I made. You can see I got the end of it all coated up with grease. So that's gonna stick it right to the end of that counter shaft in there. You guys probably can't see much from here, but there we are. That's in place. And now the coupling shaft just slides right over it. Okay, we've got our gasket in place, a little bit of sealer on it just to back it up a little bit, and we can slide the PTO right on in. So yeah, we're not having to do a dry run or a test fit or anything. I verified all of my clearances when I turned that washer out, my new spacer washer, and got everything set right where it needed to be at that time. So yeah. All right, yeah, we're smooth, aren't we? So we'll just get this bolted up eventually, and then I'll show you how everything fits. Okay, everything's tightened down. The PTO drive is in place. So let's have a look in through the top. And we're not going to have as good of a view this time because I had a light right in there last time and I wasn't about to seal one in the housing now. So we'll just look the best we can right through the top here. Hopefully we have everything positioned where it will stay. So we're in the disengaged position now, and you can see probably a decent 1/8 inch standoff yet between those dogs. So that's good. Now let me see if I can engage it. Right there, see that? Nice full depth engagement. I'm really liking that. Nice backlash right there, nothing's binding, everything, that's full depth. We had an 1/8 plus inch standoff between the collar and the coupling shaft before, and tell you what, that just works so smooth now. I'm really impressed with that. Really happy with it. So the way I set this up, we can do a free spin. Yeah, that's awesome. The way I set this up, I've got, it's probably 20 thousandths in play on the coupling shaft. I can't even get in there to point, but what that's going to do is allow a little bit of room for everything to kind of grow and tighten up as the machine heats up during operation and still not be in a bind. And it's also going to keep that thrust washer that's up on the end of that coupling shaft from disengaging from the recess that's in the end of it. So I'm loving how this thing fits. Man, that is nice. Nice spin on there. Happy with how all that turned out. Okay. I'll place that there. So top cover's on. Back end is sealed up. That whole transmission is sealed up basically. So yeah, there's kind of a lot going on in this little gearbox just to add a power takeoff shaft to the back of a tractor, but heavy duty for sure. I think it's kind of cool. So final leg of the system is going to be that rod with engagement lever. So the lever bracket bolts here, and let's just take a look at, I got the pieces on the bench yet. This nasty old rod. I don't know what I'm going to do with this thing. Just kind of mocking it up here. It's looking like it's going to pass outboard of that final drive housing flange, so somewhat like this. And yeah, I'm thinking probably the best thing to do is to leave those pieces on the bench for now and wait until I can have this housing bolted up to the side of the transmission, because that's going to allow me to see what all the standoffs have to be, what the clearances have to be. I can get it all formed, and yeah, that thing's it's such a mess. I'm probably going to end up making a completely new rod, but I need to know where it has to run and not interfere so that we don't set ourselves up for a bind or interference or anything like that. So I think we've made it to the end of another episode. Probably also going to hold off on the angle drive belt pulley because the old Hostess Twinkie cart has plenty of a load on it right now. I'm not sure how many Twinkies it takes to tally up one of these assemblies, but probably well more than it was ever designed to hold. So yeah, we're going to call it right here. We made it to the end of another episode. PTO drive only took a week and a half longer than I had planned. That's pretty much standard, right? Between parts delay, and then like I said, my schedule lately, it's been hard to find content of any kind to throw up here, but we got a little bit more done today. Progress is progress. So we're gonna bust into final drives next. We've got some rather large press fit tapers to deal with in there. I can just about guarantee hydraulics are gonna come back into play. Some of that stuff can be kind of fun to take apart. Really tight stuff, lots of pressure, and probably have to make a few new tools, and don't threaten me with a good time, right? So thanks for watching, everybody. Hope to see you back again.